Welcome to In Her Voice, a podcast created for women who listen to and live by their deepest wisdom, their inner voice. This was made for you, the woman who feels pulled to more, to lead, to create, to dream, and to be a world changer. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am an inner voice coach. Join me here each week as we explore what it means to reach for your inspired potential, all while honoring your worthiness each and every day. Well, hello there. This is Kelly. Thanks for being here with me today on In Her Voice. I love being here with you. I can never express my gratitude to you enough for pressing play on this episode, and it is such a good one. I have my friend Hutchinson here today, and we're talking about overcoming adversity with resilience. And resilience is a word that we have heard a lot in the past 2 years. We're now coming into the beginning of the third year of this pandemic. We hear the word resilience a lot. What I felt was important is that we don't hear a lot about how to practice resilience, how to get it, how to find it, how to keep it. And that's what Christmas really talks about in this interview. This is more than just like a touch word. This is really practical ways that you can create resilience and keep resilience in your life, and how important it is and how we maintain it. It's like the maintenance phase of resilience. So I think that this is a really important conversation, and I really want you to listen and take heart that resilience isn't a one and done kind of affair. And also it's not something that either you have or you don't have. To me, that is very powerful when I can think that this is something that is available to me as I practice what we call resilience habits in the interview. So let me tell you a little bit about Christmas. Christmas is a high-energy management consultant, executive coach, and author of The Resilient Mind, a field guide to a healthier way of life. She is passionate about helping high achievers overcome imposter syndrome to confidently achieve a fulfilling career as a means to find balance in all areas of their lives. Christmas specializes in resilience and design thinking with a proven track record of strategic thought leadership. She has over 18 years of combined experience in advising, teaching, training, coaching, facilitating, and leading presentations with diverse audiences across multiple industries. Before starting her own practice, Christmas worked in corporate strategy as a competitive intelligence leader at Verizon Media. Additionally, Christmas spent 8 years as a risk and regulatory management consultant for PwC, advising the world's largest financial institutions in process improvement and strategic operations. More than anything, I know that you're going to love Christmas. Her energy is infectious. So let's get right to this interview. Christmas Hutchinson, welcome to In Her Voice. I'm so excited to have you here today. How are you?
I am great. How are
Wonderful.
you?
I'm good. And we had a funny little conversation about how much joy your name brings to people and to yourself. So I just want to say, when I saw your name come in through my email as a potential guest, I was like, oh, I need to get to know Christmas a little bit better. So today we're talking about resilience, and we have both given ourselves permission to take this conversation exactly where it needs to go. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that the universe will guide us there. But why don't we start with what is resilience in your understanding?
In my understanding, resilience is the ability to bounce back from setbacks. Like, that's the most simplest way that I can say it. Mm-hmm. But when I go deeper, if I go deeper than scratching the surface on that, it's about being able to be in the valleys of your life and having that practice of looking for the silver lining in each one of the situations that are coming to you. It's that mindset of, what is this teaching me, rather than why is this happening to me, or I'm unlucky, or life just throws me all these challenges and I can't take it. But it's just knowing that and accepting that there are going to be valleys in your life, and you have the tools within yourself to climb out of those valleys.
Mm-hmm. I like how you describe that as valleys, because what comes to mind visually is this journey, like we're on this road, this path of life. And if it were just like a straight, flat path, it would be really boring and not very interesting. And so because we also want the peaks, the valleys seem sort of required. Do you believe that?
I do believe that the valleys are required, and I am a true believer in that the human experience requires challenges. Mm-hmm. And the reason why it requires challenges is because we naturally as humans want to grow. So, you start off as a baby, you learn to roll over, you overcome that challenge, then you overcome the challenge of trying to walk, and you're constantly growing. That's why people are always seeking something better. It's because it's a natural condition to want to grow. And the only way you can grow is if you have challenges.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is super fascinating to me, because I think so many people, and a lot of the people that listen to this podcast, I think would classify themselves as a perfectionist or recovering perfectionist, which I am. And so much about perfectionism is about avoiding failure. Mm-hmm. And I think so many people live their lives with an intention of avoiding the valleys. Mm-hmm. As long as I can stay out of that, as long as I don't fail, as long as I don't make a mistake. So I almost feel like if you have that mindset, you're doing yourself a disservice. Is that what I hear you saying?
Yes. And it's not. So the reason why people have that mindset, it's because that's how we have been conditioned.
Let's talk about that.
So when you go to school, when they hand out grades, that's how you're judged as a human. Mm-hmm. in your very young mind, you're judged as if you're a good human or a bad human by the kind of grades that you get. So that's when you start to just develop this condition in your mind that I'll be a good person, I won't be a loser, and all these kind of things that people are afraid of being. If I pass, or if I get straight A's, and if I fail, I'm a loser, and I'm going to be a bad product of society. So I think when you kind of just look at it differently, and we weren't, at least me, and I'm just going to just say it, I'm just talking about American education right now, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, let's hear it. No, go for it.
I'm not sure who's listening, but American education doesn't says that if you fail, because when you look at your classes, you have a year's worth of things, and you're judged by what you're doing in that particular year. And failing, if you fail, that brings your grade down, right? Mm-hmm. So mm-hmm. you're basically led to believe that if you fail, that's just going to take away from something. And it's not that. It's if you fail and try again, it actually adds back to your life. And so that's why we're afraid of failing, because I always go back to the little child thing. When you're a little kid and you're trying to walk and you fall down, do you say, you know what, I'm done, I failed, I'm done with this walking thing, my parents are going to have to carry me or push me in a stroller the rest of my life? No, you get up and you continue to walk. And we're doing that all the time, just like when you're making a dish, or if you're a baker and it doesn't come out right the first time. Okay, well, you try it again and you tweak it. Mm-hmm. But it's this whole conditioning that we have, we're suffering in our workplaces, we're suffering in our life because we have decided, or I wouldn't say decided, but we really truly believe in our DNA that failing is not allowed and
We've
it's
been
not
trained.
good. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and to make it even more complex, I think we can also layer on, I mean, I think about when I was in 7th grade, I had a crush on Denny Douglas. And he was so cute. I had such a big crush on him. And I wanted him to think I was cool. And when he asked me, when report cards came out, oh, what'd you get on your report card? I did get straight A's. I didn't want to tell him that because I didn't think it would be cool.
Wow.
To make straight A's, right? So also I think as women, we have this extra layer of conditioning that says, don't fail, but don't be too much. Don't be too good at something. And so we're fighting it on both ends. And it really does take relearning. And, grades seem so innocent, right? Mm-hmm. It just seems so innocent. But think of how many years, I mean, kindergarten through college and beyond, that we are in that mentality of, I have to perform at this certain level in order to be worthy.
Right. And then take it further into the workplace. They have performance reviews. Mm-hmm. So there's that. And then you're being stacked up against other people. And to me, I feel like those reviews can be very subjective. And so it's subjective from year to year, depending on what the goals are, depending on, whatever the issue is. And that's hard. I mean, I've been there where I have had like middle of the road reviews, or I have decided that whatever my performance review is who I am in life. And it's like, no, you're not, it's just your job.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So failure is essential. The valleys are going to happen because we're human. Mm-hmm. And so it is good for us to have a toolbox of strategies to be able to, as you say, bounce back. Mm-hmm. And to like come through the valley so we can stay on the path to the next peak, to the next valley, to the next peak. So let's start there. When you're talking about resilience, I think for me, it's one of those words that like, I understand it. I know what it means, but how do I do it? How do I do resilience? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how do you do resilience? So with it in my personal practice, there are a set of habits that I keep that keep me resilient. Some of those habits are meditating. Mm-hmm. One that's major for me is journaling. Mm-hmm. And I won't even say, I mean, that is major, but what's major at the top of my list is a gratitude practice. I do gratitudes every day. And when I talk about gratitude, I'm not talking about like spending 2 hours doing it. A lot of people they kind of avoid some of these resilience practices because they think it's going to take up too much time, and it really doesn't. It's very quick stuff. Also, a resilience practice for me is exercising, turning off mainstream media, keeping up boundaries, saying no. I can go on, but those are my major things that are keep me resilient. And And there's reasons why around that. And like for example, like when you keep boundaries, it maintains your resilience because first of all, you're not inviting people in to take your time away from you. You're being intentional about what you're doing. Therefore, you're reducing the amount of stress that you have. You're reducing the amount of problems of other people that you're taking on. Gratitude is like the number one thing for me because it shifts your mind so quickly. Like you can't have a negative thought and a positive thought in the same moment.
I love that about gratitude also. It's so powerful.
Right. And I like it because I'll give you an example. I have a friend who took this new job and things aren't going the way he wants them to go. But when I talk to him, he seems to see all of the things that are not going right. But I challenge him to tell me like why are you grateful for having this job? Are you grateful because it's giving you better hours? Are you grateful because you're getting better pay? Are you learning something new? When you switch your mindset from whatever is causing you pain to what is this teaching me and why I'm grateful for it, then you will start to feel, I don't want to say invincible, but you start to feel like, oh, it's really not that big of a deal. I can continue moving on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. That is what I do with my kids too. And speaking of kids, I think it's interesting that once we're out of like the younger years where we aren't, we haven't learned how to cover up all of our like instinctive, authentic being.
Right.
I feel that this sort of negative viewpoint, like, why does this always happen to me? Like all of the bad, I have bad luck and all of that is actually a default for most humans.
Right.
And that you really have to work and practice being positive, having gratitude, finding that silver lining, like you said. And, what I really hear you saying is that this is not something that you do, because I sort of said do resilience on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do resilience? This isn't something you do only when you're in the valley.
Right. Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So for you, how important is that practice when you're at the peak? And is it harder to maintain your practice when you're at the peak?
For me, I think like I've gone through peaks. I've gone through situations where as soon as I've gotten out of the valley, I stopped doing my resilience practice.
Mm-hmm, me too.
And then it comes back. Like then I'll start getting into this funk or like this little depressed feeling, and then I'm back into it. And so I've had that for a couple of well, not a couple of years. It's happened with me for a few years. But what I've been doing now is that I've just decided that I just do it every single day.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, and what I've noticed is that when I just do it every day, I don't have as many valleys, or if I'm in a valley, I'm in there for a very short time. It's not like days or weeks. It's probably like just the day or that moment. So I say that to say, once you get into the habit, like you're brushing your teeth or whatever you do that's a habit for you on a day-to-day basis, it just becomes part of you, and it's really not necessarily a challenge to do it when you're in the peaks.
Yeah. Well, I like the word that you used a little bit ago, and that was you maintain your resilience. Mm-hmm. So I think of that as like if you lift weights and you get to like where you are satisfied with the weight that you're lifting, you maintain that. You don't go down from that, but also you don't have to like build it up and reserve it. It's just like this maintenance of resilience. And then if the practice does fall off, then you have to rebuild it almost, right?
Right. And to your point with the exercise, the weightlifting example, people who do those kinds of exercises, if they don't stop, like, because if you stop, you lose your muscle tone.
Yeah. That's exactly right. It's not like once I get there, I'm like done.
No, it's
if only, right?
Yeah, if only. No, you're not done, because what will happen is you'll start losing your muscle tone. If you stop for 2 weeks, you'll start losing your muscle tone, and then you're going to have to work doubly harder to get back to where you were before you stopped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So I want to go backwards a little bit, because you mentioned these habits. I call them kinder habits, because these are the habits that really help us be ourselves and feel good. But one of them that you mentioned that I thought was interesting is boundaries, because I think we've all heard about boundaries, but like using boundaries as a resilience practice, I think is really interesting. So can you tell us more? You said a little bit, but can you talk more about why boundaries are so important in relationship to resilience?
They are important for relationship resilience because you have to distinguish from what's yours versus what somebody else's.
Yes.
And what happens is, I mean, we're a communal society, and also when you're growing up, I like to, because we pick up all of who we are really when we're growing up.
Sure. It's generational.
Right. So when
you're getting it whether or not you want it.
Right. So when you're growing up, you have, well, sometimes you have parents. I know I did. You have parents who don't have boundaries. So they're always asking you questions that you're not comfortable with, or they're just busting in your room and doing all this stuff. And I'm not saying that's bad or anything. I'm just saying that is what it is. Mm-hmm. And also you have friends, friends that blur the lines. Like, you guys share all these things and you're always listening to your friends' problems, and then everything becomes yours. And then you have people who grow up in families where it's how do you say,
like a solo, like in silos. Is that what you mean?
Well, maybe sometimes it's in silos, or you're in families where it's kind of dysfunctional. And so you and so you may have like an ill parent or something's going on where you're taking all of that on. And so what happens is you grow up and you start to do that as an adult. Well, what happens when you do that as an adult and you don't have boundaries, or you don't know how to put them up, that brings a lot of stress into your life. Mm-hmm. That kind of stunts your growth. And it's important to have boundaries. And there are all kinds of ways I can bring this up. So I'll give you a few examples. So there's boundaries around having friends call you and ask you for favors all the time, and you're saying yes because you feel bad and you really don't have the time to do it, or you feel like they need help. No, you may just they're just really needing an ear to listen, but you don't need to take your time that you've been given to live on this earth to go and fix somebody else's problem. So there's that kind of boundary. There are also boundaries of being that person who just does everything for people and does nothing. So basically you're taking away from yourself to do for other people. You see this with people who have children. You see this people who are in relationships. And usually it's women who are giving because it's so easy. And then they're like, well, I have to do this. But and then you look at them and they're depleted. Mm-hmm. There's boundaries there, and there's boundaries at work where you feel like I have to stay late, because if I don't, then something bad down the line is going to happen with my job. So that's where you see people giving more to their job than they're giving to themselves or giving to their families. Out of fear of something. And usually when people are lacking boundaries, there is a fear of something. There is a fear of rejection. There's a fear of, this person's not going to ask me to do something for them. If I say no now, this person's going to hate me. It's always about that other person and not about you.
Mm-hmm. So as someone, if someone's listening and they're like, oh yeah, that's me. Like, I do everything for everybody else. My kids always come first. I cook dinner every night, and, I spend all my time doing all of these things. And so I don't have time to take care of myself. And usually, by the way, the taking care of yourself are the other resilience practices.
Right.
Exercise, meditation, journaling, gratitude, spending time alone in silence, right? Like all of those kinds of things that are also part of how we maintain the resilience. So if someone's listening and they're like, yep, that's me, but how do I even start? How do you even start? If you're I think a lot of women have lived decades of their life in
Right.
this fear of not being loved if they don't caretake
Right.
everyone around them. So how do you take those first steps into having better boundaries?
Right. So the one thing that I would say first is that you have to know that when you put yourself first, you will be a better resource to the people around you. Also,
Say it again, Christmas. Because, I feel like it almost becomes trite. Like how often people say, oh, well, put the mask on your face first, right? But I don't think people really like get it. So
right.
say it again for all of us.
When you put yourself first, you are a better resource to the people in your life and to everyone around you. And the reason why this is true, it's because when you're depleted, you're nagging. When you're depleted, you're half-ass doing things. When you're depleted, you're not giving your full attention. And when you're putting love and care into yourself, you will bring your best self to your kids. You will bring your best self to your partner. You will bring your best self to your work. So that's one thing that needs to be completely established first before you start to actually take the action. And so sometimes people say things like, well, I can't do this because there's no one around. Or some mothers, and I'm not a parent, but I grew up with a parent who never gave to herself. And she's now looking at me and saying, wow, Chris, you take such great care of yourself because, I've been through there where I've been married and gave everything to my marriage. And when it was done, it was like, whoop, well, that was it. Like I've taken everything I can, moving on to the next. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, what did I do that for? But, I've seen some mothers say, well, my kids can't do this. And it's like, they can do it. You just have to have the patience to teach them to do whatever it is. And I get that babies are different. In those kinds of situations, ask for help. I think a lot of times we go to the default of I can do this, and I need to do this my way, otherwise it won't get done.
Hello, perfectionist.
Or it won't get done the right way. And you have to understand that this life isn't just your experience. Like, you are teaching your kids how to treat you, and you're teaching your kids how to treat themselves, as well as you're teaching your partner. So it's more than just like, oh, I have to do this and it has to be done the right way. Like, ease up a little bit. It doesn't have to be that way. And maybe like sometimes once your kids are old enough to cook, then they may not be cooking gourmet, but at least they're taking some of the load off of you. And it's really looking for opportunities to say, oh, this person can do this, or I can get this off of my plate. So those are some things that you can actually do. Other things, like if you have people in your life who are always calling you with problems, set time with yourself and set some integrity with yourself to say, you know what, I'm going to talk to this person for 10 minutes and then I'm going to go and do something for me. If it's really hard for you to do that, make up a story. Say, oh my God, I have to go do this for X, Y, and Z. Or I have to go do X, Y, and Z, and just get off the phone and try your best to not feel guilty. I think that's the big thing, is that guilt about doing something for yourself is like prevalent. And once you start to see that guilt is just a feeling, it's not real, like all the thoughts that you're accumulating as a result of the guilt is just perception. It's not real.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say too, when it comes to boundaries, I know this is true in my life. A red flag for me personally, like this is when I know that my boundaries have been slipping. I feel resentment.
Absolutely.
And so when I start feeling resentment, I have to step back and say, okay, because I think the first reaction to resentment is everyone is doing this stuff to me and it's pissing me off, right? But, or like, no one is helping me and it's making, like that can breed resentment. Or I have, so and so tells me all her problems, but she never asks me about my problems. Or never wants to talk about me. So there's like resentment there. And instead of putting it on the other person, I can step back and be like, okay, why am I feeling resentment? And almost always it's because I have not kept my own boundaries.
Yep.
Right? And boundaries are ours to keep, not others. Like we can't rely on others to keep those boundaries for us.
Absolutely.
We have to do it. It's our boundary. It's our fence. I think of it like a white picket fence. I put a little white picket fence up around my yard, and it's my job to make sure that you don't come in unless I invite you in.
Right. And one thing for people who are afraid that someone is going to be angry with them for putting up boundaries, those people who are angry about you putting yourself first don't really care about your well-being.
And I think, but they have not experienced you putting yourself first yet.
Right. True.
Like in terms of like, sometimes it could be kids or a partner, and they don't know the inner workings of your mind.
Right.
As much as we would like for them to be mind readers, they don't know that.
Right.
And so I always like to take it back to, it will be uncomfortable for everyone.
Right.
If you have not kept boundaries. But I think also explaining to people who can understand, obviously a 2-year-old can't understand, but explaining to your partner, explaining to your friends, like, I really need to do this for myself. Right. It doesn't really have anything to do with you. I love you. I care about you, but I need some space for me, not for you, not from you, but for me.
Right.
Yeah. So good. So good. So we're going back to the valley. And boundaries can help us keep that resilience, maintain that resilience. So when we're in the valleys, we can come out of them faster. One of the things that you said you often do is look for the silver lining and think about what you can learn from any given situation. And I have to be honest, I am an optimist, Christmas. Like the silver lining is my go-to, always. And I've been reading and hearing a lot about what people are calling toxic positivity. This idea that everything is good all of the time. And I think, when I first started hearing about that, I really had to take a step back and kind of figure it out. Like figure out, okay, does that mean that like if you're an optimist or you're looking for that silver lining that you're doing it wrong or whatever? Can you tell us the difference between silver lining, finding what any given circumstance is teaching you, and toxic positivity?
Yeah, that toxic positivity.
Yeah, it's tricky, right?
Yeah. So for me, silver lining, and so I'm a breast cancer survivor, and so for me, I would find I found silver linings all throughout my treatment. Some of them would be like, oh, I would meet people who had worse situations than me, and I would be like, oh my gosh, thank God that I am not experiencing this. But I'm also acknowledging that this sucks.
Yeah.
Like I'm not feeling well. I was going through my divorce at that same time. Like,
oh my gosh.
I'm feeling, rejected. I'm feeling like, oh, I put all this time in there. And so I feel like silver lining is when you're accepting and knowing that this sucks, but you're like, okay, but there is that light at the end of the tunnel, I'm growing from this. And so you see that. I feel like toxic positivity is when you're just being optimistic without actually acknowledging your strife, your pain, and the things that you're going through. It's because the thing is with toxic positivity, and that's the thing, like where people were like, if somebody dies, they're like, oh my God, well, they're in a better place now. And it's like, okay, you just didn't, like, I'm pretty sure they're in a better place now. But in this moment, this hurts.
Yeah.
And so the appropriate thing to say is, man, I'm just so sorry. I'm just really sorry that you're going through this. I'm so sorry. Let me know if there's anything that I can do for you. Just being empathetic instead of just kind of like negating the feelings of pain that are there. If somebody's dealing with something at work, instead of just skipping over all their pain and saying, oh, well, you should be lucky. You should be grateful that you have a job. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, I think that you nailed it. It's this idea of acknowledgement and acceptance of the pain. Because going back to what you said at the very beginning, we are humans. We will experience pain in our lives. We will have circumstances that are challenging and difficult, and that is required. And so if we are going through life with this expectation that if we just imagine it away, everything is going to be okay, then we're living in an imaginary world.
And it brings more stress on you.
Yeah, it brings more stress on you. And it's not, I don't think it's compassionate to other people either.
No.
Because when someone is hurting, if I'm hurting, I want you to acknowledge that hurt.
Right. People want to be validated. They want their pain validated and they don't want it to be taken from them.
I love this idea of thinking that experiencing pain and suffering is not the same as being a victim of pain and suffering.
Right.
So for you, what's the difference between that acknowledging and experiencing versus becoming a victim to that?
So acknowledging and experiencing is just that. Like I'm going through something. When I come out of it, I will come out of it when I'm ready to come out of it. I feel like a victim is they're using whatever is hurting them as a reason for why they have shortcomings. Like, well, I had cancer, so that's why I didn't turn it in or on time. Well, I had cancer, that's why I cussed you out and didn't apologize. I've been hurt. Like this has happened to me, and that's why I've did this, that, and the other that was not cool, So that's what I think the difference between victimization or being a victim to the things that have happened to you, because everybody goes through things. Right. A lot of people don't talk about it, but every single person goes through something, and at whatever degree, and they take it different ways. But when you experience it and you deal with it yourself and go through it, that's one thing. But if it becomes part of your identity as to why you are the way you are, that's more of a victim situation.
Yeah. We can live in that past. We can continue to live in the past.
Right.
Or like you said, we can learn from the past and live now. And I think that's the difference between that acceptance and acknowledgement and that victim mentality. And excuse me, Christmas, I just so love this topic of resilience. And it sounds to me like you're deeply connected to your own inner voice in your own practices. And I'm curious to know what your inner voice is saying to you these days.
My inner voice is really saying that I need to really talk more about this. I really need to dig deeper into this, I need to consider writing another book about this. But getting more into the nuts and bolts. The first book I wrote, The Resilient Mind, it kind of was like a quick, way into it. But that's what my inner voice is saying to me today, just based on this conversation, that there's so much nuance to this, that there's opportunity to go deeper.
For sure. I will affirm that to you. I mean, your wisdom is deep, and I can feel that. And I do think that people are craving the nuts and bolts of resilience right now. Not just the overarching idea. I think we get that. But like, what are the nuts and bolts? What are the details? How do I practice this? And how do I maintain it? It's almost like we need a resilience, not diet, because we don't want less of it.
Yeah.
But a feast, a resilience feast. And this is the recipe to get there. Well, so why don't you tell everyone how they can get your book, how they can connect with you online, and all of that good stuff?
So you can get my book at Amazon.com. It is The Resilient Mind, A Field Guide to a Healthier Way of Life. You can find me at ChrissyTV.com, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can follow me at Real Chrissy TV on Instagram.
Great. And we'll link to all of those things in the show notes, and in whatever podcast app you're listening, you can go right to all of those things and say hi to Christmas and tell her how you're practicing your own resilience these days. Christmas, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun today.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this discussion.
Didn't you just love how she was talking about her resilience practice? I think that's so important. And you all know that practice through kinder habits is life-changing. Gratitude is life-changing. Journaling is life-changing. And whatever those practices are, it doesn't have to be those specifically, but finding the ones that work for you are essential to your well-being. I really, really believe that. They're just as important as fruits and veggies and water. We need these morsels of nourishment through connection with our inner voice each and every day. And I just want to remind you that if you are in a place of, really wanting to kick up your kinder habits, these resilience practices that Christmas talked about, a really great way to stay on track with those is with my Enoughness Planner. There's a habit tracker in there. There's a place for daily gratitude. There's a place for worthiness reminders, reminding yourself of who you are each and every day. And there's a little place to journal on what you're proud of each and every day. And all of these things lead to this place of feeling enough, of feeling good enough, of feeling worthy. And just like Christmas was saying, that is part of resilience. And so if that's something that's really calling to you and you think that that would be supportive for you, you can buy it right on Amazon. And if you want the link, you can go to my website, kellycovert.com/enoughness. And the link to the Enoughness Planner is right there. Or you can just search Kelly Covert in Amazon and it will come up. I want to remind you that each and every day you are needed in this world, and that it's okay for you to take care of you. Not only is it okay for you to take care of you, it's necessary for you to take care of you. And you do not have to earn the right to do it. You don't have to deserve it. You can take care of yourself because you are alive. That is how you have, quote unquote, earned it. You don't have to do anything day to day to deserve the privilege of taking care of yourself. Remember that every single day you matter and you are worthy.